Hi guys. I cannot. This is my face when I saw on Tiana's Instagram. No one told me. Sold out. I was like, selfie right now. Who's on my Instagram? At Cannabis with Kimby. If you are, you know that I just got back from the pot tour of Denver and Las Vegas. It was sick. It was the serious business. I was with the New Jersey Cannabis Commission, the CCA, Women Grow. It was amazing. So make sure you get on my Instagram so you guys know what is going on in the industry, right? In a way that's a little funny. Anyway, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the wild world of weed. I am your plug for news and events. This is Cannabis with Kimby. So we have an upcoming event, a panel of discussion, the business and science of vaporization. Y'all know I vape. I love to vape. Vape is the best. I never leave home without my vape pen, except for today, because I was late. So I feel kind of naked. That's Monday, 226, 6:30 to 8:30, located at 40 Fulton Street. Visit mjba.net for info. Down to the news. On February 15th, bipartisan bill was offered in the House which would protect people in the legalized states from being prosecuted for cannabis use. The proposed bill mirrors the parameters of the now rescinded Cole memo and is just the latest reminder to Jeff Sessions that he's now liked less than Ted Cruz. Hashtag F off, Jeff. After reported stances saying otherwise, the Department of Veteran Affairs admitted that it can look at marijuana as an option for treating veterans. The VA still cannot prescribe medical marijuana to vets, but that's a sign that things could soon change as well. Wow, America is finally stepping up its veteran care. See, we can still be a civilized nation sometimes. Hashtag One Nation Under Cannabis. Pennsylvania began medical marijuana sales on February 15th, with more openings in the coming days. Governor Tom Wolf called the day historic for the state between marijuana and the Eagles' recent Super Bowl win. Green and the PA are looking like a match made in heaven. Hashtag Go Green, or as I like to say, Mo Green. Democratic candidates for 2020 president election are showing support for marijuana legalization, with 95% of voters for medical. Are you fucking kidding me? And 72 for recreational. Adult use, we can say adult use, we can say rec, or we can say adult use, but adult use is better. The topic appears to be an easy win for the Democrats in 2020. And we all know how good Dems are at getting easy victories, right? Hashtag Cannabis Community Strong. Ooh, this is my favorite piece of news. During a recent New York City case challenging government's classification of cannabis, federal judge Alvin Hellerstein said that marijuana did not meet the criteria as a Scheduled 1 drug. WTF, duh. This decision is a small step in the fight towards changing laws. It also marked a huge day watching the government get embarrassed and exposed as the politically driven and science-denying ninnies that they've always been. Hashtag I stand with Alexis.
Patrick, you want to come on up from Rootstrap, one of our sponsors tonight? Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to everybody give ourselves a round of applause for kind of being here. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and things in California have changed so quickly, and it's nice to see that there's a big group in New York doing what they're doing, because it's important. The tech is there. The things that we're all doing are kind of coming together. I'm a part of Rootstrap. I'm the business development director. We are a digital agency. We have worked and built a lot of tech with Snoop Dogg. We did one of his early apps, which was called Snoopify. We've also worked with a number of vape companies. We've done a lot of things in that world. So if anybody here tonight is looking to, do a web app or a mobile platform, we work with everybody from first-time entrepreneurs to Fortune 500s, from first-time entrepreneurs to Ericsson and Disney and Fox. So I'll be in the back here. I'd love to talk to everybody. Again, enjoy your evening, and I'd like to thank this group so much for having this and building this community in New York.
Thanks, man. The folks from ProGrow Tech couldn't be here. You probably met them last month. If you're looking for best-in-class lighting, it's as simple as that. Let me know. I'll introduce you to them, or you can go on their website as well. Do we have Craig? Craig, come on up. Longtime supporter. Craig Zaffe from your
My man Josh, thank you for this. This is incredible, this cannabis community. I feel so special to be part of this family. I can't tell you the great people I've met over the last 8 months, and it's a pleasure to be here. Our philosophy is we want to educate the world about the benefits of hemp, Cannabis sativa L. It is the most beneficial plant on the planet. We have over 25,000 uses of it. We use for paper, food, fiber, oil, paints, and medicine. Now the medicine part, the CBD oils from hemp, are very
People in the back want to hear you.
What do you want me?
They want you to speak up a little.
Oh.
They want to hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm new to this game. Any which way, CBDs from hemp is a natural neutralizer for too much THC, since the potency of marijuana is very potent. It's also a viable alternative for medicinal marijuana for people who want the benefits of CBDs without the effects of THC. More like this? More like this. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to hire you. I do not. If it wasn't for the CBDs, I would not be in front of you.
Me too.
All right. The CBDs we have for dogs and cats and people. We all have an endocannabinoid system. We all make our natural cannabinoids. Ooh. What's wrong with this thing? Don't stand in front of the any which way. We have different delivery systems. We have it in oral tinctures, oral sprays, CBD bombs, capsules. So when you get a chance, we want educated consumers to make educated decisions. So go to our websites. We have an information highway, and I thank you so much, and thank you for putting up for my poor public speaking skills.
Thank you, Craig. That's Craig from Your CBD Oils. Is Liz Kramer-Ernst here? Okay, Jackie will speak on behalf of Hampton's Medicine.
Hi, so how many people think they qualify for a New York State legal MMJ card? Well, the truth is, everyone's hand should be up because you don't know unless you get a video consultation with Liz Kramer. So go to hamptonsmedispa.com, make an appointment. It's all online, like telemedicine if you've done doctor on demand or anything like that. Really easy, under 10 minutes, and then she'll tell you if you have if you qualify or not. So it's worth it just to see whether or not. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jackie. hamptonsmedispa.com. And then last but not least, Neil from Kaufman and Associates. Where is Neil? Behind me? Great, there he is. Thanks.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you very much for all your efforts in building this group. It's great to see this in New York. So, I'm Neil Kaufman. I am the founder of Kaufman and Associates. We are corporate and securities counsel to the state legal cannabis industry. What does that mean, right? We help all the entrepreneurs and investors, like those of you in the audience, invest capital in this industry, build businesses in this industry. We have participated in over $100 million of cannabis industry financing transactions in all capacities, representing companies and investors. I can't even count the millions of dollars of M&A transactions we've done, all the commercial contracts. This is a special industry with special needs, and it needs to be nurtured and grown in the proper way. I bring over 30 years of real securities law experience to this industry, as well as over 3 years of hands-on, in the trenches work with cannabis companies. I help companies avoid the critical mistakes that so often cripple their growth and take the right steps to enhance that growth.
Sounds good to me. Thank you. Okay, one final set of shout outs. Casa Verde Capital, Galvanize, Vortex Power Fans by Atmosphere, Hoban Law, Noah's here? Noah's here somewhere. There's Noah. Hi, Noah. Hoban Law, Dr. Hartridge's Healthcare Solutions, Conjurepreneur, and Duber, who you will hear from in a bit. So without further ado, we'll kick things off with our program. Hadley Ford from iAnthus, who's been gracious with his time to be with us today. Thank you, Hadley Ford.
Thank you very much, Josh. And I guess I should be standing in the middle or sitting on the seat?
Sit here, and then I will get out of here in a second.
You're going to show me how to drive here?
You'll drive. I just want to ask you a couple quick questions.
Fire away.
Who are you?
You invited me. Shouldn't
I
you
did.
know that?
I did. Oh, I know, but these people don't. Well, I mean, Gene does, but actually, most of these people do.
My name's Hadley Ford. I'm the co-founder and CEO of iAnthus, and we own and operate cannabis operations in 6 states.
That's awesome. So, what is your background, and how did you get into the cannabis industry?
So, my background is really one of financial services and healthcare. I spent the back half of the 80s working at Fidelity as a regional bank analyst. I spent most of the 90s at Goldman Sachs in media and telecom, both investing and on the corporate finance side. And then I did a startup, sold that, ran the tech group for Bank of America for a number of years. And you can't hear a thing?
Is there anyone from Galvanize here?
I could... All right. How about if I just talk louder into the mic? All right. Be like a little tent revival. Carney Barker. So then, anyways, if you couldn't hear, I was just giving my little CV and background. It's really one of healthcare and financial services. About 3 or 4 years ago, I was sort of reinventing what I wanted to do, looking for the next big growth opportunity. I went online, I went to LinkedIn. I don't think I'd been there in about 6 years. Changed my profile. I had about 4,200 please join my network invites. I just hit enter. And about 3 minutes later, that guy in the back of the room, Randy Maslow, called me. And he says, I asked you to join my LinkedIn network about 6 years ago.
Sorry, let's move.
Yeah, I'm just going to move over. What is it about today that finally made you say yes? And we kind of chuckled about that for a little bit. And then I told him the story that none of you heard because the mic was too low. But I said, I'm looking for the next big growth opportunity. And he said, I found the next big growth opportunity. Now, you don't know Randy, but he has spent most of his career dealing with ones and zeros. He was in online travel in the 80s before there was an online. He was in emerging telecom when there was just the baby bells. And he was actually the founder of the world's largest trader in virtual currency before anyone in this room ever heard of Bitcoin. So he says he's found the next big thing. I'm expecting tech. I'm expecting ones and zeros. And you know what he said? Cannabis. And I laughed. Yeah, right? That was pretty bold. And I laughed, and he said, why are you laughing? This is a $50 billion market moving from bad guys to good guys. It's one of the unprecedented entrepreneurial opportunities of our lifetime, if not multiple lifetimes. I said, I'm laughing because my brother's already in the business. He's the largest purveyor of cannabis, legal cannabis, in New Mexico. And my sister's a licensed operator in Vermont. It's kind of the family business. And he said, well, why aren't you in the family business? And I said, probably like many of the entrepreneurs in this room, probably like many of the investors, how do you make a go of something that's illegal at the federal level, You can't ship things across state lines. You can't even trademark your name in many instances. And he said, well, we're two smart guys. We like working with each other. Let's figure it out. And that's the story I'm going to tell with iAnthus, is what we figured out. Can people hear me now? So hard. Okay. Just use the keys. I can jump right in.
Yeah, tell us what you're doing.
All right. So we are a public company, so I do have to do what's called the safe harbor language. You know you've really arrived when you have 2 pages of very small print that the lawyers give you to go through. I'm going to read this word for word. Actually, what it says is, I won't lie, cheat, and steal often. And it also says I can't tell the future, even though I know that I can. So the iAnthus mission is to operate best-in-class licensed cannabis operations across the United States. We are a public company. We believe that gives the investor an opportunity to partake in the growth of the U.S. cannabis market. Now, many entrepreneurs are in the room here tonight. I was sitting exactly where you were 3 years ago when Randy called. A lot of people say, oh my God, I'm late to the industry. You know, what inning is it? They haven't even begun to build the stadium yet. I mean, this industry, I mean, it's illegal federally, for God's sakes. I mean, that is about as early as you can get in an industry. So why would an investor be interested in iAnthus? Well, the aforementioned $50 billion U.S. market opportunity. It's one of the fastest growing industries in the United States. That's why many of us are here tonight, just to begin that opportunity. From an iAnthus perspective, we give investors diversification across multiple markets. I think we have a very compelling valuation. Because there's a dearth of capital in this industry, valuations are very low. What does that mean to an entrepreneur? It's easier to start your business. Near-term catalysts for iAnthus: we now have licenses in 3 major markets, Florida, New York, and Massachusetts. Over the next year, we'll be opening grows and dispensaries. And we think we've put together an excellent management team, really unparalleled in many industries, and we think it's definitely unparalleled in the world of cannabis. The market opportunity, I think, is well known to many of you here. You do have a $50 billion market moving from black to white. I personally think that $50 billion is a very, very small estimate. Think about that. That's the black market. That's the market where people are willing to get on the phone or go down to the corner and talk with their regular source for cannabis. I can tell you my wife's not doing that. But she's going to come back to the, is that moving around? It's good? She's going to come back into this market, just like a lot of people who had familiarity with the plant years ago, or people who have never used it before. And that market's not going to be 50 billion, that market's going to be 100 billion. At the same time, it's shifting from illegal to legal. That's a built-in growth rate. There's never been a better dynamic for raising money for an entrepreneur to have that as a backdrop to your business. Can you still hear me? It sounds like it's a little bit lower now. It's good? Okay. It's a market that's driven by state legalization. This is very important. A lot of people say, Hadley, aren't you concerned with the regulatory risk about Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump? And I say, well, no, there's no risk there. It's illegal. They can't make it more illegal. That's just the way it is. But the thing you have to focus on as an entrepreneur are the state regulations, the state rules, the laws. That's what will drive your success. You can't make a product, you can't have a service, you can't ship anything across the state line. You have to know your local playing field. You have to know how those things can impact, where you can locate, what you can make, when you can sell it, what you can sell. That's all driven by local politics. Read the regulations. Hire a good lawyer. I know this sounds strange, but within cannabis, it's very important at the local level to do that. It's driven legally at the state level. We have broad acceptance across 29 states with medical programs. Fully 93% of Americans have access to cannabis in some form or another. And by the way, like the survey before, 95% of the people polled say they agree with medical cannabis. I think those other 5 probably had taken some cannabis and just didn't answer the poll. I don't know how you get 95 and don't get to 100. The federal government, as you all know, leading from behind. There's always a lot of saber rattling. There's always a lot of speculation what the federal government might do. They haven't done anything. They're not going to do anything. This is a losing foray for any U.S. attorney who has got a political motive in mind, which they all do, to actually go against public polling in their state or to irritate the local police that they have to work with day to day. So I think if that's the caution that you have, or that's the worry that you have, I think you can jump in. That being said, no one should be in this business. No one should be investing in it. No one should be operating it. No one should be spending time in it if you don't think this will be a regular way industry at some point. Might be 1 year, might be 5 years, might be 10 years. But if you don't think it's going to be a regular way, that implies you can only go the other direction, and you shouldn't be in the business. But I personally, my partner personally, we believe this will be a regular way business at some point. The federal government illegality combined with the state legality has created an interesting dynamic where the cannabis entrepreneur has a license and they have no access to money. That's well written about, that's well known. The other more subtle point, I think actually ultimately more important, because there's no capital flowing into this business on a regular basis, people aren't flowing into the business either. The resources, the infrastructure allow great companies to be built. That's the opportunity for everybody in this room. You don't have the usual accountants, law firms, consultants. You don't have the experienced manager. I mean, you can't put an ad in the paper that says wanted, someone who's run 15 cannabis stores for 12 years. That doesn't exist. But that could be a career for someone if they want to take that risk and shift into the industry. And that's really created the opportunity for what Randy and I have put together, and that's to bring cannabis expertise together with expertise around operations, capital raising, regulations, real estate, government affairs, the ability to run a public company in that environment. But none of that happens without a team. And our view is that we bring best of breed and teach them cannabis rather than trying to find people who already know cannabis and teach them the business aspect of it. So myself and my CFO, Julius, we've raised over $50 billion collectively between the two of us, not for cannabis. Hopefully we can say that someday. But we've done that. We know our way around the balance sheet. We know how to use the capital markets to raise money. From an operational perspective, good friend of mine I've known 25 years, Carlos Pereira was the director of manufacturing at Intel, ran their most successful fab, highest yields, highest margins, hired 120 people every month for 3 years and had the lowest attrition rate at Intel. He then went on to run for a better part of a decade and a half, a leading water services company across 500 communities in 20 countries. He then spent 2 years in cannabis. Someone like that can make the trains run on time. That's the type of professionalism that needs to happen in cannabis so it becomes a regular way business. People can have the medicine that they need. Customers can have the products that they want. But that's the type of change and shift that needs to occur through time. From a government regulatory affair perspective, I touched on my partner, Randy, before. He can literally see around corners from a legal and regulatory perspective. Exceptionally important in the world of cannabis. So, as I mentioned before, we are in 6 states. Really, the 3 crown jewels that we look to are New York, Massachusetts, and Florida. We recently acquired the New York and Florida licenses. We applied for our own license in Massachusetts several years ago. And we've got 3 other smaller operations in Vermont, Colorado, and New Mexico. Florida is an absolutely wonderful market for us. It fits squarely in the midst of our strategy. It is a very large number of residents, 21 million, and a limited number of licenses, with only 13 active licenses today and another 4 over the next several years. We didn't just acquire a license in Florida, we actually acquired an operating business. It's called Grow Healthy. We've got a 200,000 square foot grow facility. We already have inventory, and we should be delivering sometime in the next several weeks. We recently signed a lease for our flagship dispensary in Palm Beach County. This is an absolutely stunning location. We're right off the highway. 70,000 cars go by it a day. 270,000 people live within 5 miles of us. This is just absolutely stunning to me that the federal government has kept this an illegal business and allows states to actually allow us to have stores like this to sell cannabis. This is the type of opportunity that exists within this industry today. If you get in now, if you get in early, if you do your work, if you take your time, put in the effort, the opportunities are almost unlimited. Our strategy in Florida is fairly straightforward. We're going to open dispensaries, use those as a hub and spoke for doing delivery. You're allowed to do delivery from a dispensary location. We're allowed to open 25 dispensaries throughout the state. We'll open several dispensaries and see which way the market leans, more towards delivery, more towards the dispensary side. And this is an interesting observation on the market of cannabis in a whole. There's no information. Like I could posit a question right now: grow under glass or grow indoor? And we would atomize into 342 different views right in this room. The data doesn't exist. So the data doesn't exist for us to know whether or not we should build a dispensary or whether or not we should do delivery. So we have to do perfect marketing, which is also the most expensive, which is to just try it. And that's what I would urge many people in this room. Get smart on the industry, but then just try something. We haven't even scratched the surface on the innovation that can occur in this industry. Products? I mean, you see what's going on in California or Colorado from a product development perspective. That's only been out in the open for a handful of years. Think what it's going to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now, the different products that are going to come from this plant. It's just going to be tremendous. We're also in New York. We recently acquired one of 10 licenses up here. Again, a great market, 20 million people, 10 licenses. The state was kind enough to give us licenses in Brooklyn. We're one of two, city of 2.6 million people. We've got a location right across from the Barclays Center. It's going to be a fabulous store for us. Yeah, no, it'll be. We have a little competition on that block.
I think you just got a lot of customers from that one.
Yeah, we can see what products we need to develop. We have a little view towards what people want. We're also on Staten Island. We're the only dispensary on Staten Island. We also have some locations upstate in Poughkeepsie in a county called Chemung County, which I've lived in New York for 30 years. I'd never heard of before. But it's where Elmira is, and there's 70,000 potential people in that county. Actually, there's 70,000 people in the county, 70,000 potential customers. Massachusetts is another state that we have licenses in. Massachusetts will be the Colorado of the East. It's going to be full rec July 1st. It has a population a little bit in excess of Colorado, but importantly, there's 13 million people that reside within a 150-mile drive of Boston. Now, why would I point that out? It's going to be the only full rec market on the East Coast. You think people, yeah, no, I would never publicly say that product is going to flow across state lines. But I can't imagine the good citizens of New York and Connecticut and Rhode Island are going to sit idly by while the students in Boston have a good time.
We are all law-abiding citizens.
As am I. And I apologize about my voice. I was cheering for my daughter's volleyball team all weekend. She's 17. I got to tell a little bit of amusing story. So someone here did an Instagram interview with me. I didn't realize what was happening. I didn't actually really know what Instagram was. And she said, oh, put in your Instagram whatever. I'm like, I don't have one, but my daughter does. So she got tagged, and she just texted me and said, I just saw you're talking about weed. It's good to know I have the support of my family. So in Boston, we have a cultivation facility, 36,000 square feet in Holliston. The girls are growing. You can see the photo there. Our first harvest will be in another month or so. And then we have a great location right on Harvard Ave, where Harvard Ave passes ComAve. Now, I like to show this picture, and I usually can just go over and point at the picture, but then I'll get that big squeaky mic thing. But on this picture, you can't really see it. This is where our store is, on Harvard Ave in Boston. When I lived in Boston, I was about, I'd say, a quarter mile from there. My wife was about 300 yards from there. When we got married, we had an apartment about a half mile up Com Ave. I never knew in my wildest dreams I'd come back 30 years later and sell cannabis legally. It's really, I mean, life just takes you in such strange and different directions you can't even envision it sometimes. I mean, I went by this building every day. I used to go to Deli King on the corner, kitty corner, to have breakfast every single day, never knowing 30 years later I'd be back. So from an investment perspective, and this is sort of ultimately, both as a private company, you have to be able to convince investors to write checks. As a public company, you have to convince investors to like your story. So we spend some time thinking about how we're positioned. So we look at what the potential for our company can be. Now, if you take our New York license, our Massachusetts license, and our Florida license, and you add up the addressable market, that's 48 million people. If you take the number of licenses in those states and weight it by those populations, there's only 12 competitors to sell cannabis to 48 million people. Yeah, no, that's nice, right? But that's the type of opportunity that we think iAnthus gives investors. You know, we will have great and tremendous growth. Investors will have the opportunity to grow along with us. Now, if you look at the market today, it's estimated to be about $1 billion medical market across those 48 million people. If those states were all to go full rec, Massachusetts is, Cuomo's put together a commission, Florida at some point in the future may, that would be an $8 billion revenue opportunity with 12 competitors. That is a wonderful, wonderful business to be in. We've been very fortunate. We've been very lucky. We've worked very hard for it. But everyone can partake in that. We're a public company. I have to put in the pitch for that. We're a public company, ticker ITHUF on OTC. You can buy that online. You can participate in that growth. One thing, years ago when I worked at Fidelity, I worked as a regional bank analyst, and my job was to pick stocks and then tell the portfolio managers what they should buy. So Peter Lynch was one of the portfolio managers. He ran a fund called Magellan back in the day. He wrote a big bestseller about investing in what you know. So if you know cannabis, you should invest in cannabis. If you know it, invest in it. But one of the things he said one time, I mean, this guy had $10 billion under management, and he was invested in this little tiny stock he owned like 5,000 shares of. And every month I had to come in and I'd report on the 5,000 shares. And one day I asked him, I said, Peter, why do you got $10 billion, why do you own like, $20,000 of this stock? He said, because it might have something going on, so I buy 5,000, so you have to come in my office every month. And it worked. I had to come in every month. I had to talk to him. So, the opportunity is if you buy something, you'll pay attention. So, study the cannabis market, invest in what you know. It'll force you to follow the business. You'll understand more. You'll see more of what's going on. One of the ways when people are following us, they say, well, how can we know how the business is doing? Within the world of cannabis, from a retail perspective, it all centers around the dispensary. You have a bricks and mortar location. You can do delivery from that. It generally tends to be in an area where there's not a lot of competition. So the more dispensaries that we open, the more successful that we're going to be. So if you're following us as an investment, every time we open a dispensary, that's a positive thing. Every time we announce revenues at a dispensary, what our same store growth looks like, that'll be a very positive thing. When we compare ourselves to some of our competitors, and there are a handful of competitors that are publicly traded across multiple states, we look across the addressable markets. We've got the largest number of potential customers. We look at the weighted average number of competitors. We have the smallest number of competitors. In fact, we dominate in every aspect except valuation, where we're the least valued of our competitors in the public market. That's why I said at the outset, I think we look undervalued. Now, many of you may be aware of the Canadian public markets where there's a lot of companies that are publicly traded. And we compare the U.S. market to the Canadian market. We compete for investors up there. Population of Canada, 36 million. Population across our markets, 48 million. The near-term revenue opportunities in Canada, about 6 billion Canadian dollars. It's about $42. The near-term market for us, about 10 billion Canadian. In Canada, there's 89 competitors for that 36 million people. Again, that magic number, we've got 12. Yet the average Canadian company is trading at a $900 million valuation. We're trading at about $250 million. So before I open it up for questions, iAnthus, very large market opportunity, diversified across multiple markets. We think we have a very compelling valuation story, plenty of near-term catalysts that investors can take a look at, and we have a wonderful team that can pull that all together. I will now open it up to questions. I have some applause
Are you going to
maybe?
come to Hadley? Are you going to?
Thank you.
We're We're running super late.
What's that?
We're running super late.
We're running super late.
coming to the
You
after?
told me it was 40 minutes. I told all sorts of personal stories to stretch it out. I could do this in about 12 minutes.
Are either of you guys coming to the after party? Okay.
Well, yeah, my partner is. He doesn't miss a party.
Okay.
I have to watch the money, so I'll probably.
Okay. So we'll do some questions at the after
I'm
party.
going to do one question.
Okay. Well, she's a very special lady. So
Exactly, because she had her hand up even before I finished.
congratulations on acquiring Sativa, and welcome to
Thank
the New
you.
York market.
Thank you very much. Happy
Thank
to
you
be
so
here.
much. Sorry we had to cut the Q&A short. Sorry about that. Raise your hand if you have questions for Hadley. Okay. Well, Randy, wave. That's the guy you want to ask right there at the after party. So again, we're running a little bit behind. That never happens. We're always on time. So I would just like to introduce sponsor and speaker, Andre from Duber. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, same question. Who are you? How did you get into the cannabis industry?
Well, I'm Andre van Regenmortel, which sounds very Dutch. I am Dutch, which I think is a pro in this industry. I got involved in this industry as an investor first. I did not want to work in the cannabis industry because I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. But then I started consulting to the industry, and one project led to another, and in the end I ended up working full-time in cannabis anyway.
Cool. Well, welcome. I know that you have a pitch for us, a little deck, so take it away.
Okay. Can people hear me? Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about cannabis more so than I'm going to talk about blockchain, just as an FYI. Starting with some of the challenges that this industry knows as well. It's not all rosy. And then looking at blockchain as a potential rescuer of some of these problems. We do feel as Duber that blockchain and cannabis are a marriage made in heaven. And 2018 is going to be a pivotal year for both of these phenomena. And I'll end with a few slides on Duber itself. Similar numbers to the previous presentation. My numbers are even more rosy, partly because they are in Canadian dollars. Actually, they are in US, but they do include Canada. But no matter how you look at cannabis, we're going to triple the number of licensees over the next 3 years. The market can be as big, and I'm only talking legal markets, as $30 billion in 2020, of which we feel that 1/3 could be home delivery. But it's not an industry without its challenges. And I want to spend a little bit more time in terms of what is not so easy in cannabis, because you read about this a lot less than all about the green rush. Distribution, for one. Cannabis is one of the very few industries where the typical supply chain looks like this. Individual growers, individual processors having individual vans driving their product only to individual retailers. After a day of dropping off your shipments, your products only, you come back ideally with a lot of cash. This supply chain is extremely inefficient, and it's one of the very few industries which still operate like this. The rest of the world operates like this. Hub and spoke, which was also mentioned by the previous presentation. What you would typically do if you were to do this efficiently is you have one distribution company with a much larger truck gathering product from a multitude of processors and growers, bring this to a hub or warehouse, cross-dock it there, and then ship consolidated shipments to a multitude of retailers with one van only. Much more efficient, much cheaper, and much better for the environment. Cannabis doesn't operate like this. And again, it's extremely time-consuming, polluting, and expensive. And one of the reasons why cannabis doesn't operate like this is because as a controlled substance, there is a chain of custody requirement. And hub and spoke is not in disagreement with chain of custody, but it makes it a little bit harder to respect seed to sale requirements when you actually pool shipments from different suppliers into one van. Problem number 2, all kinds of advertising restrictions. It's one thing that you can't advertise in tobacco because we all know the brands. But this is an industry where very few brands are known. This is an industry where no one knows what he or she is buying, if this comes from a reputable source, if you're buying from the same source every single time, because we make it so hard for brands to develop. And if you do not allow processors and growers to build their brands, you're going to make it really hard for consumers to know what they are buying. Number 3, challenges for retailers. There are, depending on what state you're active in, there are thousands of strains. There are tens of thousands of products. No bartender knows this. So you come into a store and you have, for example, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and you want a product that is good for that cause. If you're lucky, the bartender may know about that. If you're unlucky, he pretends to know about it and advises whatever happens to work well for him or her. But this is not a sustainable situation. We need to give sales support systems to the bartender that actually allow this person to advise consumers with legitimate needs. This is almost a medical pharmaceutical category with all kinds of health benefits. But if you use the wrong product, you have a very bad experience. You will never go to that retailer again, and you may even stop consuming cannabis for all the wrong reasons. Question. Who has heard about 280E in the audience? A minority. 280E is the gift of the federal government, basically treating retailers as drug dealers. And drug dealers are not allowed to deduct normal business expenses. You cannot deduct rent, you cannot deduct salaries, health insurance, utilities. This basically means that you're being taxed on your gross margin rather than on your net margin as a retailer. And the only way out of this conundrum is to grow much bigger, to reduce your fixed costs, and make sure that you have a big top line and therefore go home with a nice bottom line as well. This is an example of a fairly small dispensary, but even large dispensaries are struggling with profitability because of this very heavy taxation, not only by the federal government, but also by the states seeing cannabis as a cash cow for all kinds of public programs. But it's really a double-edged sword because the heavier you tax cannabis, the more uncompetitive the legal market will be compared to the illegal market, and more product will stay in the illegal market. Home delivery. C2sale systems basically cater for chain of custody of products from seed to sale. But those systems stop at the physical retailer. If that store wants to organize home delivery to its customers, the C2sale system basically says, actually it's the same slides. I'm going down in the slide. I'm actually at the 4th box, uncompetitive home delivery. I'm recycling the same material, apologies. So as a legal dispensary, you have 2 ways to do, or actually you only have 1 way to do legal home delivery, and that's by manifesting product manually. So giving the delivery driver a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet will have, okay, what are the products, what's the route, who's the driver, what's the vehicle, and where are you dropping it off? This is so cumbersome, it takes 15-20 minutes per route, that by definition you're uncompetitive versus the black market, which we all want to get out of. Inaccurate inventory. If you go to a dispensary in any state and you look at what the point of sale system will tell you is in stock, you say, okay, that sounds interesting. And subsequently you do a physical audit. You actually count the physical inventory in the back office. I can guarantee you the physical inventory in the back office is not linked with the point of sale system. It's completely different. And why is that? Partially because of the C2sale system, partially because of other reasons. But this is a real problem. A retailer not knowing what actually is in stock is a definition of non-compliance, because you cannot tell your regulators that you have not black market product having entered your white store, because your books are different from your system say one thing and the physical inventory says another thing. This is really a big issue. But it goes further. Not only does a retailer not know how much he or she has in stock herself, wouldn't it be nice to know how much your suppliers have in stock? So you know when you have to reorder, how much is being planted, how much is being grown at the moment, how much when you can postpone the order with. Same for the growers. It would be nice to know, for me as a grower, how much physical product is still in the supply chain, either at the processor, processed or unprocessed, or at the retailer, so I know when to plant my crops. This visibility on inventory in the supply chain is completely lacking in cannabis, and it's really an issue. It's an issue for the consumer as well, because you go to a web store, you order product online, there is no guarantee that this retailer has this product in stock, because again, this retailer himself does not know how much is really in stock. Okay, all kinds of problems. What are the solutions? Is blockchain the answer to everything? No, it's not. Can blockchain play a role in addressing some of these problems? Absolutely. What is blockchain? I am by no means a blockchain expert, but this is what I learned. Blockchain is a distributed ledger of transactions on a shared network. So it's decentralized. It's immutable. Once you've done a transaction, that transaction is resistant from being manipulated and changed after the fact. And it's supposed to be instant. And if all of this were to be true, you would create transparency, security, speed, and low costs. If anyone has followed blockchain or cryptocurrency in the past year, we know this is not always true. It may take more than 20 minutes for a Ether transaction to actually leave your wallet. But this is a theory, and if we get the systems right, this is really what can happen. Now let's look at those problems that I discussed in a minute and see how can blockchain address this. Inefficiency of distribution, absolutely. Blockchain is a chain of transactions. Supply chain is a chain of transactions. So here blockchain can really play a role. It's not to be unexpected that there are larger companies such as IBM who are getting into the blockchain and in the C2 sphere and see if we cannot build better C2 systems with blockchain. Inability to advertise. In itself, blockchain is not an answer. It's a legal issue. There are all kinds of restrictions for producer, processors, and retailers to advertise. But you can make advertising a lot more fruitful with blockchain and cryptocurrency by verifying who sees your advertising, and also by helping people to actually watch advertising by rewarding them through cryptocurrency. Sales and retail support systems. There, as Duber, we see less of an application of blockchain. This is really about making sure that a bartender has at his fingertips, at a point of sale system, information on strains, on products, and on customer reviews available to serve his or her customers better. Uncomparative home delivery. Again, very much linked to the supply chain. If you can extend chain of custody all the way to the consumer doorstep, when the delivery van shows up, you have a winning scenario. By making manifesting automated rather than manual, you give retailers and home delivery a genuine chance to compete with the black markets. Inaccurate inventory, again, high potential for blockchain, creating higher visibility, not only at the retailer, but across the entire value chain, how much is in stock across the entire supply chain. And finally, a better customer experience. Again, inventory visibility is also useful for a consumer because he or she may actually order what is in stock. But I haven't spoken about the big elephant on the table, which is cash. As probably all of you know, cannabis is not a very well banked industry. And credit cards are not very well accepted in the industry, meaning that this is an industry which runs on cash. Cash is expensive and cash is dangerous. And if there's one industry that needs the convenience of electronic payments, it is cannabis. There are a number of players out there who have come up with pot coins and cryptocurrency dedicated to cannabis. Duber has its own coin called Duber Coin, and we are absolutely convinced that there is a great future for electronic payments and therefore for cryptocurrency in cannabis. Even if credit cards were to be accepted, once cannabis becomes nationwide legal, there are very few retailers who actually like credit cards. Credit cards are expensive. There's all kinds of chargebacks, and more than 25% of the American population doesn't have a bank account and therefore doesn't qualify for a credit card. And we're shutting these people off from the convenience of electronic payments. But you can do more with cryptocurrency than just facilitating electronic payments. And that's where we came in with our white paper, which we wrote 6 months ago. There's an interesting phenomena that there are a number of people who create a lot of value, not only in cannabis, but in any industry, by being loyal customers, by referring friends and family to products or retailers, by writing product reviews, by watching advertising. In general, these people are not compensated for that effort. The benefit of that effort goes to people who either read reviews or are enjoying better product information. Why not using cryptocurrency to incentivize people to continue doing what benefits the entire ecosystem, which is creating and improving product data, writing customer reviews or product reviews, referring friends and family, being a loyal customer, and watching advertising. By putting in a system where you reward people to continue to do so, you get many more people who actually take the effort of writing reviews, for example, and basically helping the entire ecosystem to benefit from this effort. To finish, a few words on Duber. We are one platform for the entire industry. We are unique in the sense that we unite the entire supply chain, from growers all the way to end consumers, retailers and delivery. And we do this through a real-time inventory platform. That should not come as a surprise based on what I told earlier. And because of this real-time view on inventory, we improve economics for all actors in the supply chain, and we give consumers a much safer and superior experience. We're 2 years old. We've received 9 million in funding. We have launched 3 products. We build web stores for retailers. We develop digital menus for retailers, so no more chalkboard in the dispensary or printed menus, but actually live menus on large TV screens which sync live with inventory. So if a product goes out of stock, it will disappear from your TV screen. And self-serve tablets for those who prefer not to talk to a bartender but actually browse on a tablet at the dispensary, place their order on the self-serve tablet, and then pick up their products. 2018 is going to be a pivotal year for us. We're going to launch we have launched our advertising platform for growers and processors to allow them to actually advertise at point of sale, which is a beautiful vehicle for growers, because if you want to advertise anywhere, you want to do it in a dispensary. It's a 100% relevant audience that is actually of legal age and in a buying mood. We're going to launch our loyalty and mass messaging platform in Q2, as well as our point of sale system, and we're working hard on our own home delivery and distributor platform. That was it from me. Thank you for your attention. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to take questions.
Yeah. We'll get a couple questions. Are you coming to the after party for a little bit?
Maybe.
Okay. So I think the 2 main questions that I have, one is you've raised 9 million, so you're not a super early stage startup, but you're not, iAnthus scale. What are the lessons that you've learned getting to where you're at?
Specific on fundraising, and this is also a little bit of a Canadian story. We are headquartered in British Columbia, in Vancouver. And the Canadian financial markets are completely different from the ones in the United States. So where you were to go to venture capital as a next step beyond angel investors, that is much harder in Canada, because venture capital companies in Canada mostly understand resources. They do not understand technology as well as venture capital companies in the States do. And being a Canadian company, that's an additional challenge when it comes to fundraising. So that 9 million is all friends and family. There's no venture capital.
You have some very nice friends.
Yeah.
Oh, and then
we have 300 shareholders. So yeah.
Very nice friends. How could we help, or what are you looking for from the CannaGather New York community?
Well, if you're interested in Duber, come and talk to me. We are looking at a new funding round, to be very blunt. We are also looking at venture capital, potentially coming from the United States. So we're very much open for an additional round of investors.
Cool.
That was fantastic. Thank you. There are a couple really impressive things about Duber that you didn't mention that I thought you might want to elaborate for the crowd. One is the extensive technology expertise in terms of the international pay for parking expertise that comes to this platform, as well as online gambling, which is much more stringent even than cannabis. And so the team, I think, is very impressive in that respect, that it comes to the cannabis industry with all of that security. If you want to elaborate on that, and also the biometric readers in terms of medical home delivery. You didn't touch on that, and very impressive stuff.
Yes, Duber is part of a larger group which is called Seraflop. And Seraflop is active in a number of industries, one of them being gambling. We like industries that are semi-legal, and we love industries that are basically underserved by large national scale companies. That's one of the beauties of cannabis, but also of gambling, is that you do not see the usual suspects. You do not see IBM active in cannabis. You don't see your large software players active in cannabis because they feel they have more to lose nationwide, more to risk than they have to gain. And that's a beautiful proposition for the iAnthus capitals of this world, but also for the Dubers of this world, where we actively look for industries like cannabis, but also like gambling, that are, for the wrong reasons, as far as we are concerned, are being shunned by more well-established nationwide service providers.
So I see a lot of people getting up. I know that we're over time. If you want to talk about Duber, he's right here. Come hound him. Show of hands who had a good time? Who learned something? Great. March 20th, next event, .cannagather.com. Get your t-shirts, memberships, stuffed animals coming soon. Come chat with Andre, come chat with me, come to the after party. The kitchen's closing soon. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.